Hello, Herlighters. It's Erin Foley back in the booth talking women's sports. I hope you had another fantastic weekend of watching. Oh, God, all of it: soccer, basketball, field hockey, lacrosse, volleyball. Everybody's playing something, and it's just very, very exciting. Before we jump into the episode, huge, fun, fantastic announcement. I feel like I'm giddy. Okay, so I'm kicking off the tour, the Her Lights Live tour, which includes stand up comedy. Then I'm going to bring a local guest, one or two female sports powerhouses from the community. So I'm kicking it off this Saturday at Rough and Tumble Pub in Seattle, Washington, October 5th, 8:30 p.m. And I have two amazing guest announcements. First one, Haley Kopmeyer. She was a former goalkeeper for the NWSL. She played for the Reign for like 4 or 5 years, Orlando Pride. Just phenomenal goalkeeper for University of Michigan for 4 years. And now she works for Just Women's Sports, which is so cool. She's headed of like branded content strategy. So we'll figure out what that means. But she's doing it. She's working hard every day to promote women's sports. And if you don't know about Just Women's Sports, go to justwomensports.com. I have been following them for years. They're doing more and more content. Their newsletter is fantastic. So we get a twofold. We get an athlete and someone that's in the belly of the beast promoting women's sports every day. So I'm so excited to talk to her. And then also, wait for it, Coach Harvey, the coach of the Seattle Reign soccer team. Can you stand it? I can't. I'm sitting down. I know that's a dumb joke I say every week, but I'm just gonna stick to it. Yes, Coach Harvey. She's joining me on stage. So it's Haley and Coach Harvey. And I'm just so thrilled. We'll talk about obviously the Seattle Reign, but we'll talk about NWSL we'll do some soccer talk. We're going to talk women's sports talk. We're going to talk about the relationships they have with the Seattle Storm, WNBA, all of it. It's just going to be just a fun conversation. So if you are in Seattle or adjacent, I love the word adjacent, this Saturday, October 5th, 8:30 p.m., Rough and Tumble Pub in Seattle. I am super fired up. Okay, this episode, we are knee deep. If you're watching on YouTube, I've got my WNBA sweatshirt. We are knee deep in the WNBA playoffs, my favorite time of the year, because I'm obsessed, obviously, with the WNBA, in particular the New York Liberty. But shout out all the teams that made the playoffs. We are through round one. Okay, so the top four teams made it through: Liberty, Connecticut, Minnesota, Las Vegas Aces. They all beat their teams 2-0, took care of business. Top four teams are in round two. I'm recording this on Monday, the 30th. So I wanted to kind of record it at the last minute so we could get round one. The first round of the semifinals of the WNBA playoffs, we're going to cover today. And that's the Liberty versus the Aces and Minnesota, Connecticut. If you didn't watch the games, you don't have to watch the games to enjoy this podcast. I have a fantastic guest, Kaycee Conlee, just one of my favorite human beings. You have people in your life, they have just such great energy and they're just kind of, I don't know, always like positive and filled with joy and just kind of suck the life out of life. That's how I describe Kaycee. Just, she's so funny. She's such a good basketball player, and we both kind of geek out on the WNBA. And it's such a fun discussion about playoffs, but just kind of the WNBA season, where we've come, where we're at, how we watch games, how we obsess over games. And you're going to absolutely love her. So let's jump right in. I need to know who you're cheering for. Let's establish who
Yeah.
we're cheering for, and then we're going to talk playoffs, some regular season, coaching carousel. It's all
Well, I
coming
think
your
you're gonna
way.
like my answer because I'm an Aces fan, but I I think the three-peat is boring, a little dull. I mean, it would be cool, I guess. I wouldn't be mad if they won, but I found myself just watching the game and being like, wow, why am I pulling for the Liberty? Um, yeah, so I feel like I kind of knew that I wanted the Liberty to win. I just like a redemption comeback after losing and all that. And then I really got invested in Ellie this year.
Oh my God. Yes.
I've gotten very invested in Ellie, and so I also just I want her to get a ring, so I'll find out where she's going to wear it. Like, is it going to go on the trunk? Is it going to go? Do you know what I mean? The tail. Um, anyway, so I found myself pulling for the Liberty. I didn't mean to. I don't know how it happened. I consider myself an Aces fan, but yeah, I don't know. I like the idea of their. It feels personal to them, especially this series, which
Yeah.
should be the final, but we'll see. Um, but then yesterday, the games, I was like, that the Liberty game was kind of a blowout. Liberty Aces was a little bit of a blowout.
Well,
Although I felt tense the whole time. I didn't feel like,
oh, there
yeah.
is no amount of, by the way, as I'm recording this, my sweet baby Jeter, this is why typically I record all of this in the office, but had a little mix up this morning and Jeter's now losing her mind in the background. I don't even know what she's
She's
doing.
so cute though. But
Anyway,
what did she mix
she's
up?
I don't know. I think she actually heard you say I'm a Aces fan and then she
Oh,
went ballistic in the background. No,
fair. That's
it's
fair.
no, I hear you because the Aces are just so fun to cheer for. It's such beautiful basketball. I
Mm.
love watching them play. But obviously, as a lifelong New Yorker and Liberty fan,
Yeah, of course.
five finals, no championship, the last original team not to have a championship. And I really do feel, I know I'm being dramatic and I'm buying into the announcers prepping my anxiety or stoking my anxiety. Of like, it's going to be dismantled last year. This is the best chance they have. If they don't get it this year, they're never going to get it. And I'm like, that's correct.
Wow.
That's like,
Wow.
they're really,
Pressure?
they're, Kaycee, I know we've known each other for a while. So I know you're going to believe what I'm saying. The other night, I was up at like 3 a.m. thinking to myself, paranoid about like Tiffany Hayes. I was like, she could be the X factor. She shut down Sabrina in the playoffs last year when it was Connecticut Liberty. She was screaming at Sabrina, "You can't guard me." And you know what? Sabrina couldn't guard her. And literally, this is 3 a.m.
Wait, where
on
are you? Are
Saturday
you in the
night.
kitchen pacing? Can you paint the picture a little bit more?
No, it was in 3 a.m.
But
It
I'm
was
picturing
like,
you out of bed still,
oh,
just
no, no, no. I was just in bed trying to
eyes
not wake
wide
up
open,
Sarah and
staring at
Jeter.
the ceiling.
Yeah, they're peacefully sleeping. And I'm going, okay, like I'm doing matchups in my head. I'm like, I'm absolutely losing my mind.
Yeah. Wow. So this is actually maybe what should upset you more is that I find myself sort of I'm like wishy-washy about my fandom. I like watching the basketball in the WNBA so much that it's like, who am I watching? I'll decide in the moment, which is what that's why I found myself yesterday being like, I guess I want the Liberty to win it all because I'm watching the game and I feel myself pulling for them. But I have a Sparks hat. I go to a lot of Sparks games, so I like them. I love watching the Fever this year. Who doesn't like that was a fun
So
like
fun.
excitement. Yeah. And then post Olympics, I found myself everyone from the Olympic team. I was like, okay, now I'm rooting for you and your team. So yeah, there was a little bit of like I liked watching the storm. I'm all over the place.
Okay, here's some follow-up questions to that. First
Yeah.
of all, that sounds delightful and so much fun because I do not watch the WNBA like that. So I want to talk about that. Wait,
Yeah.
so you're not like diehard, and you as new listeners and OG listeners, Kaycee was on this program all the time when it was Sports Without Balls. You were a fantastic basketball player, so
Oh, well,
you're
thank you.
constantly playing basketball. So
Yes.
I thought just you would be crazed about one team. Did you
No, I
not
really
like
like
ever
players.
have? Okay, so you do players over team.
Yeah, and in fact, when I say I'm an Aces fan, it's mostly because they just have the most players I like to watch and root for. Like their
Interesting.
entire starting five is like a delight. I like, and my Aces gear, I have, it's just an Asia shirt. It's not,
Of course.
so yeah, I guess I do. I like the players more. And listen, I'm waiting for loyalty. I have a fan of a lot of different sports and I have teams. So that's not foreign to me. But it's just something I guess I don't have an instinctual go-to team in the WNBA. I like a lot of different ones. So maybe one will rise to the surface. But in the meantime, I really just like I'll watch the game and like pick. So yesterday's games, I really enjoyed both of them a lot.
Yeah.
Just
I
they were fantastic basketball games.
That's so interesting. I don't think I've ever honestly spoken to someone that, you
You're like,
know,
I actually don't like you anymore.
no, I love it. No, I think it's just really interesting. And like I do that. I think I do that for um Well, I certainly do it if my team isn't in it. Like,
Oh,
I
that's
know
fair.
this is going to be,
Yes.
by the way, just a lot of tangents. We'll go in and out of games and in and out of fandom. But I did that in Minnesota, Connecticut. Like if my number one team isn't in it, and
Yeah.
I would consider Sparks my number two team, absolutely. So if it's not, Liberty or Sparks, like last night I was like, okay, Minnesota, Connecticut. And then of course, because I have a problem, and I'll freely admit it, I went down a laundry list of like factors why I would cheer for each team. And I was
In
like,
the game while watching the game.
no, before the game, about
Okay, good.
15 minutes to tip off, I go, who am I rooting for?
Yeah.
And then, so let's just do this now because this is fun. And
See,
then you
that's
can,
like a neuroses. I almost feel like, well, I'm like, I'm just going to wait
yeah,
for the game to start and see what happens, see where my heart pulls. Yeah. And
I
you're like, no,
like
I have
it.
to figure this out.
Oh, no, no, absolutely. I have to figure it out. I was
Yeah.
like, okay, Minnesota just so feel good. That the Lynx
Yeah.
have been a feel good team since day one. Cheryl
Yes.
Reeve, coach of the year, executive of the year, gold medal. She's amazing. I also absolutely love that she is so much like her female empowerment is like roof off. She's always
Hmm.
wearing t-shirts that are like, either like Harris or vote or women can do this, men suck, not really. But
Yeah.
like she just is like an amazing just ambassador of
Figure.
the
Yeah,
game and
totally.
ambassador for like women's rights. So I'm obsessed with her. Collier, obviously, UConn,
Yeah.
love. McBride, I watched at Notre Dame, always a big fan of hers. Went to eight, so I'm like, this is like, no, I'm like, do I like the city? Do I like the, like
What
I
I,
literally go, toe for toe. And then I'm like, Connecticut. I mean,
mm.
I
Hmm.
love Bonner. I love
Oh,
Alyssa
yeah.
Thomas. Alyssa
Love to watch
Thomas
a couple
is,
playing on the same team. What a delight.
I mean, I can't even, right? And then I'm like, Mabrey watched her at Notre Dame.
Oh, yeah.
Biggest trade I think we've seen mid-season trade to affect a team. And I can't even tell you. I mean, that was an amazing trade
Also
mid-season.
fun. Have you seen all the memes about her and Dejanay, like basically
Yes.
how they would battle and now they're, yeah,
Yeah.
it's such a delight that they're like this dynamic duo, but then
Yeah.
because they were such fiery players against each other, it's
Yeah.
making them so much better together. That's a delight.
They
Um,
hated each other for people that don't know the backstory. Yeah,
yes.
just
But they were
I
just
think it
very
was
competitive and
really
vocal
competitive.
players.
Yeah.
And so they would inevitably guard each other and it would get, competitive and ferocious or whatever. And
Dicey.
yeah, it was great. And now
Yeah.
watching, there's lots of stuff online if you just look, but there's good memes of like showing them literally mouthing off to each other. And then now they're like arms around each other.
It's
It's so great.
adorable. The
Yeah.
power of sports. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I love that. I love Carrington. I think she got most improved, right? Most
Yes.
improved this
By the
year.
way, I didn't know that that was a superlative. Do they do that in the NBA? Because it
I
feels
think so.
to me, I was like, what a weird, like you were okay last year. It's like not a compliment, but a compliment. It's weird to me. I
Yeah.
understand it's a nice thing, but to me, I can't help but it's almost like I really like your hair that way. And it's like, well, you didn't like it. Wait, what are you saying?
Are you? Well,
Yeah.
when they gave out best hair, I was like, this is getting a little
Yeah.
ridiculous, WNBA. Best
No,
fit, best hair,
yes,
best
yeah.
nails.
That would be amazing. But
Yeah.
yeah, most improved feels, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a
I
nice
hear
honor,
you.
but it
I
does
hear
feel a
you.
little
Yeah.
like, wait, what?
Was last year I was total trash? I thought it was,
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, you're like, yeah, I've been working on this 2 years running. I really sagged last year. I was pulling for this award. I knew
yeah.
if I was lazy, yes, I could really
I
come
threw in
after
the
it.
towel
Yeah.
just so I could get
So
most
weird
improved.
award, but
Yeah.
nice, I guess. We're fans.
Yeah. I
Also, I
think
was
so.
reading that she was very graceful with accepting it. Because I'm watching like the clips and she's so smiley, and I was like, is she like behind that smile? Like, what are you saying about my stats last year?
I thought I really brought a lot to the table, but
Yeah.
apparently I didn't.
Yeah.
Apparently I had to bring a table. Um, yeah. So I'm honestly, I'm honestly still torn on I went with Minnesota.
Hmm.
I enjoy their style of
Whoops, by the way.
basketball a little bit better, but then I said to Sarah before it began, I said, listen, this is a series that I'm going to cheer for Minnesota. However, if Connecticut wins, Totally fine with that. To me, it's like the way I watched the Liberty Aces and then the way I watched Minnesota, Connecticut were so drastically different. Minnesota, Connecticut, absolute pleasure. We got a pizza. My feet were on the table. I was like, what an enjoyable WNBA game. Came down to the wire. Loved every second. I was a absolute wreck watching Liberty Aces.
Yeah. I was
Um,
definitely, that one was more intense, which was interesting because game wise, the Liberty led the whole way,
yeah.
and I kept thinking though, this is what the Aces do. They just kind of hang around
Yep.
and then they just need to be within like 10 with a few minutes left and that's it. They'll close it. And so thankfully, the Liberty kind of answered every little run they tried to make, but it did feel very tense, even though there was a decent gap. I mean, I think they never got within maybe six, but yeah, it was scary. I also, whenever you ask me on this podcast, I'm always like, I need to research and make sure I bring something to the table. I can't just be like color commentary. So I did
Absolutely,
look.
you can do color
Yes, which is
commentary.
what I was telling myself this morning. Was like, Kaycee, don't try and act like you know stuff you don't know. But I did look through like the on the ESPN app. I was flipping through just the stats to be like, have a talking point. And
Oh my God, I love you so much.
both teams that won yesterday had better 3-point percentage, like significantly better. Like they just hit from three. And so I was like, well, there's a story. And as a 3-point shooter, I was like, yes, we bring a lot to the table. So that was secretly my little tidbit. But I thought was like interesting that a lot of things being equal, that was like seems like a deciding factor for both teams.
Yeah. Well,
Also,
let's
yeah,
talk
go
about
ahead.
it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that talking point. New York, I thought, and to your point before, um, it was, let's say I was watching the Minnesota Connecticut game like I was watching, not like an insane person,
Mhm.
the the Liberty Aces game. I would have been like, oh, New York's got this. Like they were in full control the entire game. It certainly, as a super fan, did not, whenever it's your team, you lose your mind. But um, Vegas has come back time and time again. They have every single piece on that team to win another championship. Any given day, any team can win. The Liberty, I think you were there in LA, right? When the Liberty lost to the Sparks. Were you at that game? That
No,
might, I don't know.
I saw the Aces lose to the Sparks
Oh,
in
right.
LA.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We were both at that game. Yeah. That was bizarre. So, like, the Liberty have had moments this season where you're like, wait, what? Like, how can you lose to the Sparks? But in all fairness, the Aces did too. So, but I thought their game plan, normally, I don't think anyone can outcoach Becky Hammond, but I thought the game plan for the Liberty was, like tremendous. Like the the amount of intensity was unbelievable. Like they did not let up, and I think that's the thing that the Liberty has to do to beat the Vegas. Like every play, you basically have to say, "I'm going to play out of my mind," and
Hmm.
then when I sit on the bench for like 5 minutes or 10 minutes, I can just like kind of regroup, and then when I get back on the floor. I have to play like this is the last game, and that's like the only way you can beat the Aces. And I thought they
Well,
they really did that.
well, and I think that was because this is like personal for them. That like
Yeah,
everybody was talking about how they didn't beat the dream by enough and they're coming into this and like everyone's picking the Aces because I was like, yeah, but the dream
yeah,
isn't it's not personal to them. They were like, let's just check this box. Now
yeah,
they're fired up because they're mad.
yeah.
They were not embarrassed is maybe it's not the right word, but like there's like a fire in
Kind
them
of.
that feels like, yeah, it's like we have a vendetta. We have like a debt to pay here.
Yeah.
And so I think, yeah, but they have to bring that for, at least two more games because it's like you said, they can't really take any plays off. It's like every possession you have to be fiery, and Brian Stewart needs to have 30-point games.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. I thought, yeah, Cindy Brondello, I meant to say her name before as the coach. I had a moment where I was like, wait, what's her name? I mean, obviously, like, has so much experience, just this is her. Another point too is like that everyone kept making that I thought was obvious was such a good point is like this is year two with the team. Like I think everyone expected the Liberty, year one super team, new, best of the best coming together. And they needed chemistry. They need another year. I also thought the bench, we have so many our depth of the bench is like huge. And then I think this really showed, and this is why I was so impressed with the coach was the way she used Lainey, who's still kind of recovering from, I believe it's like leg or knee injury. Lainey's defense on Chelsea Gray was unbelievable. Gray like had a really good first quarter, I thought. And like that team really like I think goes through and lives and dies
Mhm.
with Chelsea Gray. Obviously Asia Wilson is you know,
But somebody's got to get her the ball.
someone's got to get her the ball. You know what I mean? So when Chelsea Gray is like boom, 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 then Asia takes off, then everybody elevates. Um, but Lainey would come in and do this like insane defense on Chelsea Gray, and then she'd go rest. And then they would like, they bring in Burke, they bring in Vandersloot. I mean, also Brundella's move of starting Feebich over Vandersloot. I just was like, okay, I could really
This
see
is
in the game yesterday.
strategizing
I'm like,
and
this is
yes, good
great
game planning.
strategy, great
Yeah.
coaching.
Do
And
you kind of feel like even the way you're describing it, it almost feels like they were like, oh, we have to play defense like Vegas plays defense.
yes,
And then they were playing such tough defense that I feel like Vegas was tired and wasn't able to maybe go as intense on their defense. I
yeah,
mean, I also when I was watching it felt like they were missing a lot of shots that they might normally make. But that's a credit to the defense, right? I
yeah.
mean, so yeah, I would
It
agree
was
that it was almost like they were like, okay, we have to elevate.
no, I mean that's the thing. It's like I think, you know, there's no way to beat the Las Vegas Aces who are going to go down as like these teams like that starting five is insane.
Mhm.
It's like they're going to go down as like some of those Lynx teams, Comets, it's some of the greatest teams to ever, play in the WNBA. So if you want to beat them, yeah, Stewy, 34 points, 5 rebounds. Then she has 4 fouls, and I was like losing my mind. And Sabrina hits like to your point with the 3 pointers. She hit like two poster
Oh my
three. I
gosh,
mean, one
yes.
was like logo Clark esque, but I mean, her back and forth with Spike Lee, I was just tears of joy. It was so adorable,
Also, Kelsey Plum and Spike Lee getting into it was kind of fun too. I
so
loved that.
fun. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
wonder
Well, and I
really
saw the
like what was
great.
said.
Well, she said in a post game conference basically that she was like, I can't say what was said, but essentially, I told him to talk louder or whatever, and it was like they were just riling each other up, which I was like, oh, I love this, especially knowing Kelsey Plum. Like that's how she loves
Love
that.
her.
She's always going to
Yeah,
encourage it and talk noise and stuff. But I also was just thinking like I've seen Spike Lee on the court yelling at NBA players. And
yeah,
like he's getting involved in everything over there. So almost like watching that happen, it was like this is respect for the women's game too, to
yeah.
say like, yeah, I'm gonna talk trash to them just like I don't care. And I love
Such
them
a good
getting into
point.
it and getting chippy. And yeah, I was like, heck yeah, bring it. And especially because hearing Kelsey's like post-game press conference about it, that it was like, no, this is all in good fun. It's all part of the game. It wasn't like, yeah, it's about basketball. That's basketball.
That's
I play
absolute
in my
basketball.
little rec league in Burbank. We get like that.
Spike Lee shows up and starts
Yeah.
ta- talking crap in your
Yeah.
rec
It
league
always
in
it's
Burbank.
nasty and then the whistle
Yeah.
blows and you're like, good game.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. I mean, that was like, someone had asked me the question of like, do I miss like the garden? And I had been to Barclays probably like maybe twice now each season for the last couple years. And of course, I'm always going to miss the garden. But Barclays is so fun. It is so rowdy. It feels like that is the closest you're ever going to get to like heyday of garden.
Mhm.
And to see Spike Lee, and he's been there time and time again, to see the celebrities. I mean, that's just like the garden was,
Yeah.
even back in the day. Um, and to see a lot of like former Liberty players like Kim Hampton's always there, Sue Wicks, uh, it just feels like full circle Liberty, and to have that absolutely packed out and like everyone losing their minds. And also, I have to say this, Sabrina has been through, I mean, she has played so much better this year. And I'm like so excited for her because I was just thinking about like her journey, like comes out of Oregon during the Pando, doesn't even have a March Madness. And Oregon was like
Yeah.
#1. Like, and I Sabally, UNESCO, like I loved that Oregon team. Then she goes into like the bubble with all this pressure on her in the middle of a pandemic, then gets pretty badly injured in September. then has to
Yeah.
put up
What?
with like a roller coaster of 21, 22. She's the face, she's carrying the team, two different coaches, players are coming and going. And then the super team last year, which takes the pressure off. So she played better. But then this year, taking it to another level, like it's just been fun to see her path
We
too.
talked about that. I feel like the overcoming all that stuff. This sounds like a documentary that needs to be made or is
Yeah,
probably in the making.
I'm
I
sure.
mean, the camera's
Yeah.
following people around all the time.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, the
So
100% they're probably making it. I can't wait to watch.
oh my God. Yeah. I just I love this team. I love the depth. I love the coaching. Um,
I also
and
think the Olympics changed some players. I
yeah.
really think it gave them like confidence going back to the WNBA. It's like, oh, I can play on a world stage and be this good and I'm with the best of the best. And then going back, it just felt like it really changed. I don't know. I felt like they elevated their game, all of them. Everyone that played in the or in the Olympics, I feel like came back and took something from it. And even some players that didn't. I mean, we all saw Caitlin Clark's shift after the Olympic break, making adjustments. I just was like, this was, I don't know, it was cool to see.
So
Also was
fun
like
to
obsessed with
see.
the Olympic team, but
Oh my God. I was also upset. Like, I thought even the three, what do they call it? The 3x3, right? I think that's what they call it.
oh
I
yeah,
think
yeah,
they use
yeah.
the X.
The
Um,
yes.
dear, like to your point, Ryan Howard and Dearica Hamby had phenomenal second halves of the season. And I
Yeah.
think that was absolute confidence and Ryan Howard. Like it was kind of interesting to see the top four teams just take care of business in round one. Everybody won two games to zero. And some of them were very close, really competitive. That second Indiana Connecticut game was like lights out fun. Um, to see Diana Taurasi, I'm skipping around a little bit, but Diana Taurasi, like, oh my God, I'm gonna like cry at some point. If she, I mean, I'm assuming you don't go through all of that and she comes back. Like, I think
Yeah,
we're
I would
done,
think so too.
right?
But I was like, I would have expected her to make the announcement and then enjoy the being carried
Right?
off the court and not
Yeah.
leave it TBD and then have like the sort of half celebrations and tributes and stuff. So I wonder if she really is unsure. But yeah, this is jumping around too, but yesterday I don't know if you'd call it a pleasure. I enjoyed it of watching the games with someone who was like new to the WNBA. So we
Ooh,
watched the early game. We were at a bar also watching football. So there was like lots of TVs. We could be engaged with anything else, with anything. And then we watched the late game with dual screens in my house. So I had the WNBA on the big TV, and then we had the football game on a little TV. And my friend Jordan was like, we're like watching, and he's like, wow, at one point they called like a timeout and the Lynx drew up a play. It was the beautiful one where like Collier
yes.
slipped the screen, and he was just like, "Whoa, that was like a beautiful basketball play." And I was like, "That's what the WNBA brings,
Yeah.
that is like sort of lost from the NBA just kind of does like one
They
on
just do an
one
alley oop and yeah,
pick and rolls
yeah,
and like
yeah,
it's not the same kinds of like full court press or like you know what I mean, like the real
yeah.
basketball like elements and fundamentals." And watching him react and have those, I mean, I know he's late to the game, forgive him, but all those token
Welcome.
reactions of like, oh, it's real, like this is like basketball, this is like, you know what I mean? And I was like,
Yeah.
yes, exactly. And then telling him about Dewana and Dewana and Alyssa and being like, yeah, they're dating, they're like engaged. And he's like, wait, what?
That's so fun though.
Yeah, it was really fun to because like, now I'm used to it and everyone in my, orbit knows about these things. So like delivering the news about it was very fun. It was a real pleasure. And then he was like, I get it now. He's like, no wonder this has been like blowing up. And I'm like, told you. Yeah.
This is so exciting.
Yeah.
When I started this like, Sports Without Balls 2.0 version, I think it was like in May or something. Um, that one of the first ones, I'm still figuring it out, but like, it's a process. But one of the first ones I was just talking, it was just me talking about the WNBA. And my dream for the season, this is before the whole Clark Reese, like gross races, like just before that became political and disgusting. And hopefully people have learned some lessons, but probably not. But that people would, go initially for Clark and stay for the
Right. Right.
WNBA.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
truly think that has happened because now people um, are yeah I feel like the numbers not only obviously for all the Indiana games obviously the numbers are extraordinary for the Fever and Clark, and I'm so happy about that. But I absolutely, the viewership being up, I think it's up 50, it's 54 million in 2024, the highest total in 22 years. But people now are, sold out arenas in Minnesota, in New York. It'll be like that in Vegas. Like, Clark is out and the viewership and the attendance is still like at max capacity. And I absolutely love that. I think that's just the coolest.
Yeah, it's only going to get better. It's also
Yeah.
just cool to see it. I mean, again, this is probably not a no-brainer for people that listen to this, but like in my feed on Instagram, there's more accounts covering it. When I watch ESPN, there's more highlights from it. They're actually like talking about it. And it's nice to see it just like getting the attention it deserves.
Yeah.
Not having to find out like what's CBS Plus Watch Me or whatever. And like how do I get this app
Yeah.
Fubo to watch this game? Instead, it's just
Yeah.
like, no, it's on ABC.
No, it's like we take it for granted. Although before we hit record, we were let's talk about how the games were 17 hours apart. And I
Oh,
did not,
yeah.
it's gotta
So
be
I
like, I
mentioned,
guess
yeah.
football scheduling.
I
I
don't
don't
know what
know.
the programmer's mind was. I used to work like when I studied in college was in journalism was like television and programming. And so like I went out to watch the game, the noon game at a bar where we could watch football too. And so there was like I'm in on Pacific time. So the football game started at 10, the WNBA game started Liberty Aces started at noon. And I was like, "Oh, that's perfect counter programming because those games are like ending or not in like direct conflict with yeah, like there'll be a lull between the football games. People can jump in and watch, whatever. Right. It was kind of like,
Yeah.
okay, I get it. But then the game ended and I was like, why are there, 3, 4 hours before the next game starts? I'm out already. I would love it if it just rolled into the next, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. That's
So that it didn't, and I was like, okay, so and I understand that maybe something was happening with the arenas or there's a lot of other things in play. So if the other game had to start at 5:30, again, Pacific, which is the same time Sunday Night Football starts, that's tricky.
not great.
But if it has to start at 5:30, then have the game before it start at like 3 or 3:30. So you're still rolling into the next game.
Yeah. And it's not like the Liberty are competing with the Giants or the Jets because they suck so bad. I can say that because I've been a New York Giants fan since I was two. And it started last year. I refused to get the football package. I'm like, no, I'm not paying $400 to watch them lose every week. Um, but yeah, I
Principles.
thought that was odd. But it's like you take these huge steps and then
Yeah.
one
But then
little,
somebody else mentioned, like, oh, I saw something with like, oh, with Caitlin Clark out, they're going to move things to like ESPN2 or they're going to, whatever. And I was like, I mean, I guess those are business decisions that have to be made. I would love to know more of like the insidery, what they were thinking with that, because to me, it didn't make any sense. I was like,
it,
the point is to get momentum,
yeah.
and like you put the Lynx and Sun were later because those were like, it was like a 2-3 matchup, my guess, or yeah, I just couldn't figure out why they did it the way they did it.
I think
So
it's all second fiddle to, like, first of all men's sports, NFL Sunday, but
yeah,
yeah, who it's probably rights packages, um, who's playing who. Yeah, I mean
yeah, you're right.
Liberty
Cities
Vegas,
probably are a
yeah.
factor.
Cities, there's probably a whole bunch of stuff outside our pay grade. But the fact that one was on ABC and one was on ESPN was, tremendous
Yeah.
for, yeah, without Caitlin Clark, which again, like I honestly feel bad for her in a lot of ways because she's not only supposed to, like, you know, rookie of the year and have all of this stuff wherever she goes, it's sold out. She's got all this pressure. Then it's just like, then she's not playing. Well, it's like, well, NBA is gonna, take a hit because of no she can't really do anything right unless she just speaks like
Do
Kamala Harris and plays like Michael Jordan,
you,
and she's a child. She's literally
yeah.
like 22 years old and she's supposed to be, shining on the court every second and then also shining off the court every
Well, and
second.
not just shining, but saying all the right things
Yes.
and yeah, and answering questions that can be biased and leading. And I mean,
Oh,
look at what that reporter did to Dejanay, and it's like,
just
yeah,
so gross.
I
Yeah.
know. But like, yeah, I wonder if, and I know she's a competitor. I
Yeah.
know she's a competitor, but there's got to be some part of her deep, deep down that when the Fever exited, she was like,
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm clocking out.
Can I just take I felt that way when she didn't make the Olympic team. I'm like, I'm telling you, this is the best thing that could have happened.
Yeah.
Absolutely. She needed a break. She not only needed a basketball break, she just needed a media break. You
Yeah.
know, like
Yeah.
she's
Yeah.
just, that was, I was so impressed by her. And I know, like, obviously, with any accountability of how Black players are treated and homophobia and all that stuff, obviously, like, everybody wants her to step up and say like the most eloquent thing you can possibly say. She is like a white girl, untrained media white girl from Iowa, right? She's learning
Yeah.
as she's playing, she's learning the world, you know? So I gave her, like, she's going to get better and better about all of that stuff, you know?
It does
I
feel like I think the key part for her is like there's a clear willingness to learn and listen.
yes.
And
Yes.
so whatever she doesn't know, she's like, okay, I'll admit it, I don't know it, and we'll try and do better and
Yeah.
whatever.
It's
So
just she was just under an absolute impossible position. But yeah, but overall, I think that break, I've watched more Indiana. I've said this on the podcast before. I'm not a fan of Indiana except for
the
Bloomington.
state, oh,
Yeah, the
as
state,
a whole, yeah,
policies, politics, all of it. But you know, she's just so dynamic. She's so fun. Kelsey Mitchell was so fun to watch.
yeah.
You know, Aaliyah Boston.
Also the
It
way,
was fun.
yeah, I was just gonna say that like the way that she elevates her teammates by like the passing and the expectations and the
Yeah.
all of that was really cool.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it was a pleasure.
It was
I'm opening my app back up because I was like, what was the other talking point I wanted to?
well, also, while you're looking for that, I did think, like, to your point originally with a 3-point shooting, if I'm Minnesota going into that Minnesota Connecticut game, now I know Bonner had an off night, and they won, which speaks volumes for Connecticut's, I would say, suffocating, blanketing defense. Even though Minnesota's, like, I guess, probably the number one defensive team, or they're
Yeah,
probably
supposed to
tied.
be. They're supposed to
Supposed
be,
to be, but
supposedly. Yeah,
Connecticut, you know, traditionally
right.
DNA. Um, but I would put 7 players on Mabrey. Like, I would just, you know what I mean? I would go out of my way. I would be like, Carrington, don't let her, you know, wait, they're playing on the same team. Sorry. Who's on Minnesota? That's I don't know maybe Carlton was defending her, McBride. I don't know. I would just put 2 players on her at all times, because, to your point, that was the absolute factor. Mabrey's threes beat Minnesota, you know,
Yes.
at
Well,
the
it's
end
just
of the
interesting
day.
because I feel like the Lynx are kind of known for 3-point shooting, but
Yeah,
it just wasn't there.
they did not
Um,
have it. And then Mabrey stepped up with some giant threes. And that was really, they were both playing like such good defense. That was really the game. That was it. Mabrey's
yeah.
made a couple threes, Minnesota didn't.
Yeah.
Um,
I think she had more than a couple. She had like 6.
She had 6. No, I mean in the last, like, minute.
Oh,
I just
okay.
felt like she just had 2 bombs that just, like, put the nail in the coffin. Yeah, 6. I
Yeah.
think it was the highest, like, the most amount of 3 points in a playoff game. I mean, she's just yeah, she's just going to be so fun. And I think, nerdily, what I'm so excited for is
Nerdily.
game 2 adjustments.
Ooh,
I love
yes.
a good,
You
ooh,
like a good
what's going to
coaching plan,
happen?
a game plan strategy? Yes. Yes.
Absolutely. Because, like, as a basketball fan, I go, okay, like, I like learning. Like, they were really, by the way, big shout out to, like, Chene and Andrea Carter breaking down games at halftime. I'm like absolutely obsessed. Also, Andrea Carter is probably the hottest woman I've ever seen. So, and she's breaking down basketball, and I think
Best hair.
she's just like such a smoke show. And then she's like, okay, see how they slip the defense? And I'm just like, bah, bah. um she's it's just it's such a pleasure to watch, like, 2 fierce women that have played the game and, like, break it
Yes.
down so
And
we can
really talk.
understand
Yeah.
it.
There was a great moment. I think, I can't remember the line. Oh, it was like, look, I don't remember what game it was. It had to have been at home. So I was watching it at home, I believe. So it had to be Link's son. But one of the announcers said, yeah, oh, look at that, like giving the stink eye or whatever. And then the announcer was like, well, I think it's stank. But I
LaChina
was like,
Robinson.
I'm
Yeah.
dead. I'm dead. It
Yeah.
was so funny that I was
Oh
like,
my
this is the
God.
commentary I want. And also, like, the correction of like you sound like you would never hear that. I feel like in a men's game, if the announcer like mixed a metaphor, the other one's not going to be like you got that wrong or like you sound really dumb. Like let me just correct that for you so you never make this mistake again. But yeah,
I learned. I turned to Sarah and I go, "Is it stank eye or stink eye?" Like we had a stink eye conversation for like 5 minutes, and
yeah.
I'm like, wait, is it like
Is
it
it
was
stank
so
after
funny.
it would past tense or is it?
I literally was like, okay, well that's interesting, and then we had a yeah.
Yeah, but I
So
love
then,
that. Yeah, I was just like, this is great. This is
oh
what
my
I
god,
want. This is the stuff I want to hear.
yeah, and I love when they break down the games, and that's what I'm talking about, like game two adjustments, because like at halftime, you're watching it, and the game is going so fast, and I'm so stressed out. You know what I mean? Every time they like, so then like at halftime, I'm like, okay, yeah, actually, what are they doing? And what are they, you know what I mean? Because like I'm watching it, so it's so fast and furious. So then at halftime, when they're like, okay, obviously one of the biggest things is they were switching, and the guards then were switching, and then they were getting, we've got like, Plum guarding Stewy, and then Stewy was just like, just,
Cute. Yeah.
just feed me the ball. So I was like, okay. So then in the second half, I was like, okay, let's, then I was
What
like
are they
honing
changing?
in for that,
Yeah.
the changing in the picks, and it was just really interesting. So now I'm
Just
like, okay, game two adjustments.
I just want to paint a picture here. When you're watching the game, you said you and Sarah talked about stink versus stank. I imagined you watching and like no one's allowed to talk.
Well, no one is allowed to talk. However, during the Minnesota Connecticut game,
You'll
it
get a
was
little looser
fine.
with the rules.
I was a absolutely looser with the rules,
Yeah.
but she was playing pickleball during the Liberty Aces game. I don't know if I've told you this. I think I told you this. By getting her into the WNBA slowly throughout the years, she's become an Aces fan.
Oh no.
Inside, I have an enemy. I have an enemy in the house.
I like that
Again,
she was true to her heart though. She didn't feel like this sense of loyalty to you. She was like, no, I'm gonna root for who I like better.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's
Independent
good.
woman.
Very, very independent woman. She took it a little too far last night when she said Jeter was an Aces fan, my dog. And I
Well, he's
said,
got a little black
his
jersey, right?
her
He's wearing,
godfather is Derek Jeter.
yeah,
Obviously, she's a
but
Liberty
that's
fan
baseball. She's wearing like a little black jersey. She's in an Aces uniform.
because she's a black coat.
Yeah,
Okay, watch your mouth. Just
I'm
for the
just
record,
saying.
everybody, my dog is a Liberty fan. Thank you. Um, but yeah, no, she was at pickleball, and I just, I don't need
That sounds like
anybody.
it's best for your
It's
relationship.
just
Yeah,
then she
yeah.
came back and she watched the fourth quarter, so that was fine.
Oh, nice.
But I pace, I grab the yoga ball, I rock back and forth. Nobody needs to
Yeah,
see this. You know what I mean? I never go to a sports bar. When people are like, you want to watch the game together? I'm like, it depends on the game, but not
yeah.
really ever, honestly.
No. Wow.
I just,
Wow.
I don't, but I will
It's
go.
best for everybody, it seems
Yeah.
like, and all of the
Like
people in your life.
if I would go, I would absolutely go have a beer with you and watch Minnesota, Connecticut. I think
Yeah,
that would be actually really enjoyable.
yeah, it'd be
Liberty
very
and
fun.
Aces, I will not be in public.
No,
Absolutely not be in public.
it sounds like it's
It's
for the best. Keep you
it's
out of
for
jail.
it's for the absolute best. All right, a
But
couple
but
quick
public is
things.
considered, would you go to the game?
Oh, absolutely, I would go to the game.
Because yeah, my friends are asking me if I want to go to Vegas on Friday to go see game three. I'm actually going to be in Vegas next week for a comedy festival. So I was like, I can't go there twice in
Yeah.
3 days.
No,
But they bought a bunch of tickets and they're like, my basketball friends, who by the way refer to the NBA as the MNBA. Um,
that's amazing.
yeah, we were talking about it Saturday morning. We played some pickup and we were like chatting after, and they were just like, well, in the MNBA. And I was like, wait, what?
Okay, I love them so much. Tell them that's the greatest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
I considered I considered going to Vegas, but I'm going to be all right. So this is what I'm talking about, sports. So kicking off her lights this weekend in Seattle. So Friday night, my plan was to it's Rain ACFC soccer game at home in Seattle. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to that game. But Liberty Aces start at
Yeah.
4:30. and I'm performing at Rough and
Oh,
Tumble on Saturday, the women's sports bar.
this
So I
is
was like,
comedy
do
or are
I
you wrestling?
a little bit of both? So Friday night, I'm like, okay, do I go to the Rain ACFs? Do I go to Rough and Tumble at 4:30, watch as much of the basketball game as possible?
But you just said you don't
Or
want to watch it in public.
will I well, the thing is, like, I want to see the atmosphere so I can talk about it,
So
or
it's
do I do
research.
this? Do I do this? Do I watch the Liberty Aces in my hotel room? That's plenty.
Yeah.
Then I don't go to the Rain soccer game. I go to Rough and Tumble where I can watch the Rain
Mm.
soccer game on one screen and Minnesota, Connecticut on the other
And
screen
get your research of what the vibe
and get
is.
my research. But it's very hard for me to pass a live sporting event.
Yeah, those are
So
fun.
this is what goes through my mind. And aren't you happy for me that I have a Her Lights outlet?
Yeah, because you can call it research and you can call it work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you been to that stadium before? Have you seen a game there before?
No, I've not. I
Okay, then
have
I think
not
you
been
got
to
to go.
Lumen.
I think you
Yeah.
got to go to the live game.
Yeah.
That was my question that would help you decide.
Yeah, I know.
If you'd
And
been
it's
before, I was going to say then do what you need to do and watch in your hotel. But if you've never been to that stadium, you should go.
I know. I know. It's a real and that way I can also still protect
Bubble, if
my
you will.
liberty bubble inside the hotel room of me screaming. Okay, a couple more talking points. So you're going for, is it official you're going for Liberty over Aces?
Yeah, I'm for
Okay.
sure going for Liberty over Aces this round. I would love to see them win. If the Liberty can't pull it out, I'm going to have to reassess and see
Okay.
where my heart takes me.
Where
There
does
is
your heart
something
taking you with the Minnesota Connecticut
I
series?
like the Lynx.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure where that, and maybe it's because like you were saying, like they're kind of like the little feel good story. They're,
Yeah.
you know, I'm saying I like the Lynx. I would prefer them win. I do think the Sun might get it done.
I
They're
was
just
surprised.
so they'll just shut you down. They're stifling and they're intense and it's like they have so many people to go through. And I feel like the last play of the game last night where the Lynx basically just were like, give it to Collier. We have no other choice. And
That
then she
play.
drove and was like, they were giving her the layup because they're down 3
Yeah.
and she didn't take it. And I was like, maybe just take the 2 and try to foul, but instead pulled it out. And again, I don't have a problem with this. She's the star. Of course, you want it in your star's hands. But the fact that it didn't feel like she had anyone else she could trust or dish to, and even if there was someone in her mind she'd like to have gone to, there was no one open.
There was no one open. I
Um,
thought that play was surprising though, given the the elite play calling of Cheryl
yes,
Reeve, so it was
you
like
had to
was
know they were
Stephanie
going to give
White
you
the
that
coach?
layup,
Yeah, I was like, did the
but
coach? Yeah, I just thought like, what
it
did
was like
they
she
do on
went in,
defense? Yeah,
realized they weren't going to foul. She wasn't going to get a 3-point play. They were going to let her have it, and then was like, "Oh no!" But I think there was like 11 seconds, and I was like, "You could still lay that in
yeah,
and have 6 seconds and try and foul and get this back." It's a tough. I don't falter for it,
yeah.
but I think what that showed to me was that she doesn't have. She needs more help, and I don't know if her feeling like it's the team on her back is enough to overcome the Sun. They've got too many pieces that are scorers, you know?
And me, it's I hear you on that one. I think uh, obviously that play got completely effed for lack of a better
Whatever was
basketball
supposed to happen.
whatever
Yeah.
was supposed to happen did not happen because and I'm on the couch and now it's the next day and I'm like she should have taken the layup and then immediately fouled. Of course, this is real time that's happening. But she's got some killer. I mean, first of all, she can also shoot three,
Yes.
but Carlton and McBride are like laser three pointers. So maybe I'd have to go back and look at it again, but it seemed like it was just like lockdown defense. And I think Connecticut's viewpoint was like, take a 2, but you were absolutely not getting a 3-point shot.
Yes. Well,
But
and
literally had no one open.
I think the goal was so they inbounded it to was it Williams? Or they inbounded
Yes. Oh,
it
yeah.
someone
That's what
and
it was, Kaycee.
they
Courtney, I thought was like, where was Courtney going?
yes,
That
and then
that was
I
weird.
think that they were supposed to hit Collier coming back off like a screen and she was supposed to shoot it, but then they were in her face because
Yeah.
maybe Williams stalled it too much
She
or like
just, I felt
started to
like she was like
drive.
5 seconds. I didn't
Yeah,
think,
and so
yeah, you're
yeah,
right.
that was something
Yeah.
broke down there
There. Yeah. And
and
then it,
and then it was just like Collier trying to do her best, realizing she didn't,
Yeah.
she could have a layup, but that wasn't gonna be enough, and maybe not aware how much time was off. And
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, but it really did fall apart. And to me, that was like, I was like, oh, like the Sun are gonna, like, it actually reminded me of the way I feel about the Aces, where I'm like, if the Sun are close at the end, they're probably gonna win. They're gonna find a
No, that's
way.
true. They played each other. I think it was like 3 or 4 times in the regular season, and all games came within 5 points. So this is going to be. I'm hoping this is a 5 game series. I have Minnesota. I have Minnesota in 4 or 5. I'm still
Yeah.
picking Minnesota. However, I wasn't surprised at the Connecticut one, but I was surprised how almost like thrown Minnesota looked at times.
Hmm.
Um, and I think, I don't know. I again, game 2 adjustments, Kaycee. This is
Yeah,
going to
we'll
be
see. We'll see
super.
if the coach of the year can come through.
Exactly. All right, just two more quick points. I cannot believe that Teaspoon was fired in Chicago.
Oh my gosh, I know.
Kurt Miller out of LA.
That's not
He's
surprising.
That's not that
That
surprising, but I was still surprised.
I guess maybe I'm coming from a world where it's like, I see the NFL like coaches get fired if they're just like losing records basically. And
Yeah.
the Sparks were, you know, pretty bad. Even with, yeah, I know that they had some injuries and stuff, but I still feel like they were just giving games away. Like they would, my wife and I had the joke that it was like, well, it's the fourth quarter. It's time for them to give away the game. So they'd be
Yeah.
leading the whole time. And then
Yeah.
it'd be like, nope, here we go. Here, it's yours. And so that one didn't surprise me that much. But yeah, Teaspoon was like, I was like, what? And then Angel Reese's
Devastated.
reaction, I feel like
Oh,
made it even harder because you don't know the inner workings of that. But to hear what the relationship they had with essentially your star, that's not good for the franchise.
no.
That's not good for the attitudes in the locker room, you know?
Yeah. I just thought I gasped. I welled up. I love Teaspoon, obviously. Uh
Hopefully she'll
I
land
had
elsewhere, right? Maybe she'll come to LA. I don't know.
I would think so, but I think I think it speaks volumes on how shitty that Chicago organization is. That Chicago organization at some point, they've had what, 3 coaches in 4 years. Candace leaves. Vandersloot quickly, her wife was just like, I'm just not going to play. She just didn't even go to another team. She just full on stopped playing basketball after they won the championship. Mabrey loses. And I mean, Mabrey leaves and just shits on Chicago.
Mm.
And like, it's so unfortunate because what a great basketball city. And they've got all these
Yeah.
new young players. Kennedy Carter, who obviously had like a phenomenal season, but has been obviously problematic for years. Seemed like she bonded with Teaspoon. She had a
Hmm.
fantastic season. She's so dynamic and so fun to watch. Reese, like, of course, other level. And then
Yeah.
when everyone knew this was going to be a rebuilding year for Chicago, to give her 1 year. I mean,
Yeah.
Kurt, you can at least say, yeah, it was rebuilding, but you had 2. I would have just liked to see Kurt just had 1 more year because
Mm.
I was a big fan of his coming out of Connecticut. But maybe obviously something's a problem because going into year 2, NECA leaves, Chene leaves. Like that was like, whoa, where are they
Yeah.
going? So
Yeah.
obviously there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that we don't know, but the Teaspoon felt really shitty,
Hmm.
given also how every player came out and was like, I cannot believe this. That's gonna be ugh.
That's actually one of the things, though, I will say I love about the W is that people will just speak out.
Yeah,
I feel like there's like some sort of gag order in other leagues or, in the men's sports,
yeah,
um, that they won't, I don't know, they just won't be honest or forthcoming to media or the fans. And I think that the W does that really well. And I like that they feel like just like the post I just mentioned about Angel Reese
yeah,
saying all that stuff. I think, other leagues, people feel like they can't publicly state those kinds of things because of what the repercussions it might have in their career or down the line. And I don't know, it's as a fan, it's nice to hear stuff like that. Because otherwise, like I said, I had no idea. And you would just be left to speculate, like, oh, well, maybe she didn't get along with
yeah,
the players or whatever.
yeah,
And then you see like, well, no, she got along with them great.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, just no, that's a really good point. And the W of course has been on the forefront of, women's rights, social change, on it,
Yeah,
like
I mean, even
the
speaking out about the interview,
that
the question
reporter.
in the interview,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
like even
That
just being
players
like,
union statement was like
yeah,
just so badass of just what, it's so blatantly like, I think someone came out and was like, that's the definition of gaslighting. I mean, or maybe that was in the player statement. I mean, it really was the definition of gaslighting. And
yes,
then
it was
it's
like your
like,
question alone. It was like, what are you? Yeah,
like
it was
Dejanay Carrington's going to poke Caitlin Clark in the if you had, I mean, it's embarrassing for that reporter. It's
also,
so
if you watch the
embarrassing.
play, it's so
It's just
clearly
it's
not
so
on. Yes, it's so clearly like basketball move, and she had no idea what happened, and
yeah.
like it was like what? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and also, I mean, I didn't know this until I read about it a little bit more that that reporter's writing a book on Caitlin Clark, and so it's
Yeah.
clearly so selfish and like purposefully baiting them to like have a story and elevate yourself
Oh, yeah,
because
it's
you want to promote your
ridiculous.
book and stuff. And I was like,
Yeah.
ugh,
Listeners,
gross.
that for just that the quick backstory was this, a white female reporter for the USA Today, like badgering Dejanay Carrington on like a just a irrelevant foul that hit Caitlin Clark in the eye, like, and I think it
The way
was
that
like
she
game
asked the
two.
question, though,
It was
yeah, she asked like,
so
"Did you
like
do it on purpose? And were
purpose.
you laughing after?"
And she was just like, what are you talking about?
Yeah,
And
and by
it's
the way,
just
that
so
was her
gross.
interview after she got the Most Improved Player award.
So there you go.
Yeah,
Right. It's just, it's gross. So hopefully they'll
yeah,
obviously the media and the fans and everybody has to do a better job, because this league has been, yeah, on the forefront of speaking their minds, standing up for what's right above any other league,
yeah.
women or
Well, and
men,
speaking of
that
like Caitlin
exists.
Clark learning and listening, it almost feels like the W is also having to coach the reporters and the journalists, and they're having to coach the
Yes.
fans and how like this is how you act. This is like not just at games, but behind the scenes, the messages and the like the DMs that these players are talking about and
Oh,
showing that they're getting. It's like everyone's learning together, and you like, what is wrong with you? We want your fanhood, but some of them we don't want all of you. You know,
no.
I mean, you
Absolutely.
got to
If you're
act
a
right.
racist, homophobic piece of shit, go
Yeah, this
watch
isn't for
something
you.
else. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because come on, that's ridiculous.
yeah.
Um, all right. Well, I mean, I thought in my bones that this was going to be some of the greatest WNBA playoff action, and I feel it. I already feel it. Like I feel like game ones are always like, okay, everybody's sussing out everybody, but I'm telling you, if you're not watching the WNBA playoffs, get on board. This episode, we drop new episodes on Tuesday, so I'll just say, as you're listening tonight, Tuesday, October 1st, Liberty Aces, Minnesota, Connecticut. You don't even have to be a crazy basketball fan or have a team. Just use Kaycee's strategy of, who do I like? Who do
What
I
does my
like?
heart tell me?
What does my
When the
heart
ball
tell
goes to
me?
the basket, am I happy or sad? And who shot it?
That's it. You
When a
don't have
foul is
to
called, do
be.
you agree? Do you disagree?
It
Do you know what I
really
mean?
truly is like beautiful basketball, and you
Your
don't.
body
Yeah,
will tell you.
your body will tell you. Don't listen to your thoughts. Thoughts are
Don't
constructs.
obsess over it for an hour before the game
You
starts.
don't have to wake up at 3 a.m. and think about Tiffany Hayes as an X actor. Like you don't have to rock back and forth like you need a handler on your yoga ball. You can just
Yeah.
watch it as a delightful, normal human being
Although
like
you can also watch it
Kaycee.
your way. I don't want to, I'm sure I have more friends that are
Yeah.
as insane as you.
Just shoot me an email, Erin@herlights.com, and tell me how you watched the game. Is it Kaycee style or is it Erin Foley style? I'd like to know how people watch games so I could learn a little bit more about the listeners, and also maybe there is another person that's as insane as I am and we will
You're,
become friends.
you're going to know right away because if it's your style, the email subject line is going to be in all caps.
There we go, listeners. There's your homework. Erin@herlights.com. Tell me how you watched games. Kaycee Conlee, everybody. Just a bag of joy, that woman is. I love her. And just a great comic. So go see her live. All her shows are on KayceeConlee.com. I will post her website and her information in the show notes. Okay, people, you know what time it is. feel-good moment of the week, and it's a good one. 2 weeks ago in the NFL, the Panthers played the Raiders, and it was the first time two female presidents went head-to-head in professional football. Carolina's president, Christy Coleman, and Raiders president, Sandra Douglas Morgan, are the only two female presidents in the NFL. Okay, so the Panthers went on to beat the Raiders, but obviously both teams winners because they have women at the helm. I mean, this is huge. This is the NFL we're talking about, an organization that has been historically terrible with women on and off the field. But to their credit, in the past, 2 or 3 years, they've really made a big push to get more women involved in the organization. Coleman shared, "I'm really proud of this moment. It shows you can be anything as long as you do a good job." Douglas Morgan added, "We want to celebrate the fact that these are new, groundbreaking moments. But at the same time, we're just doing our job, just like every other president in the league, and making sure we're handling the day-to-day business operations." Congrats to these two powerhouses. So inspiring and so feel good. And that is our show, everyone. All the information for my live shows is on herlights.com. Again, Seattle, Coach Harvey, Haley Kopmeyer. I'm so fired up for that. Oh God. I mean, I'm so fired up for this. It's comedy plus me talking sports. It's an absolute dream sequence. And then the whole tour, again, on herlights.com, we've got Seattle and then Chicago, Minneapolis, New York City, and Portland. Get all information on herlights.com. Also, please rate and review the show. Go on Apple Podcasts. It's a huge help. 5 stars, leave a fun review. I love reading them, and it brings joy to my day, and I can't thank you enough for that. That is our episode. Fans, friends, family, have the best week of your life.